The wind howled through the desolate landscape as I gripped the steering wheel of my car, my knuckles turning white under the pressure. The darkness outside pressed in, an impenetrable void that swallowed everything in its path. It was a moonless night. And the only light came from the feeble glow of my headlights cutting through the dense blackness. I had always heard stories about this stretch of highway, how it was cursed, haunted by the ghosts of those who had met their untimely demise here. But I had brushed off those tales as mere superstition, thinking I was invulnerable to the terrors of the night. Little did I know, I was about to become a character in my own twisted horror story. As the miles rolled by, an unsettling feeling crept over me. As if unseen eyes were watching my every move. My heart raced, and I tried to shake off the unease by turning up the volume on the radio. Static filled the car, punctuated by eerie whispers that sent shivers down my spine. I quickly turned off the radio. The silence now just as unsettling as the distorted voices. Up ahead, the road seemed to disappear into the abyss, swallowed by darkness. I squinted, my eyes straining to make out any signs of life. Suddenly, a figure appeared in the middle of the road. My foot instinctively slammed on the brakes, and the tires screeched as the car skidded to a halt. My heart pounded in my chest as I stared at the figure illuminated in the headlights. It was a woman, her tattered dress billowing in the wind. Her hair was matted and disheveled. And her eyes glowed with an otherworldly light. I couldn't move, my body paralyzed by fear as she slowly turned her head to face me. The air grew colder, and I could see my breath fogging up the windshield. With a sudden jolt, the woman lunged towards the car. Her fingers scraping against the glass. I screamed, my voice drowned out by the deafening pounding of my heart. I fumbled for the gear shift and slammed the gas pedal, the tires spinning as the car lurched forward. The woman's image grew smaller in the rearview mirror. But her haunting gaze remained etched in my mind. I drove for what felt like hours, my mind a whirlwind of fear and confusion. The road seemed to stretch endlessly, the scenery never changing. Every once in a while, I would glimpse shadowy figures at the edge of my vision. Their forms fleeting and indistinct. I tried to convince myself that it was just my imagination playing tricks on me, but the feeling of being watched persisted. A sign appeared on the side of the road, indicating a rest area ahead. Relief flooded over me as I pulled into the empty parking lot. I needed a moment to collect my thoughts and regain my composure. The fluorescent lights above flickered ominously as I stepped out of the car, my footsteps echoing in the eerie silence. As I walked towards the restrooms, a cold breeze whispered through the air, carrying with it a haunting melody that seemed to come from all directions at once. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end as I turned around, scanning the darkness for the source of the sound. That's when I saw her again, the woman from the road. She stood at the edge of the parking lot, her ethereal form swaying to the haunting tune. I felt a mixture of fascination and terror as I watched her, unable to tear my eyes away. Her gaze locked onto mine. And she beckoned me with a bony finger. A voice inside my head screamed at me to run, to get back in my car and drive far away from this place. But another voice, soft and seductive, whispered that maybe she could offer answers, a way to escape the nightmare I had stumbled into. As if in a trance, I walked towards her, each step heavy with uncertainty. The melody grew louder, filling my ears with a cacophony of eerie notes that seemed to seep into my very soul. Her eyes bore into mine, and I could see the pain and sorrow etched into her features. She reached out a hand, her fingers grazing my skin like a cold breath. "Help me," she whispered, her voice a mournful plea that echoed in the night. I opened my mouth to respond, but before I could utter a word, a deafening screech cut through the air. The woman's form twisted and contorted, her features warping into a grotesque mask of agony. I stumbled back, my heart racing as the melody turned into a cacophony of shrieks and wails. A figure emerged from the darkness, its form shifting and changing with every step. It was a monstrous creature. A twisted amalgamation of flesh and bone, its eyes glowing with an unholy light. It lunged at the woman, its claws tearing through her ethereal form as she let out a blood-curdling scream. The air was thick with the stench of decay and rot, and I gagged as bile rose in my throat. I turned and ran, my footsteps echoing in the night as I sprinted back to my car. I fumbled for the keys, my hands trembling as I jammed them into the ignition. The engine roared to life, and I slammed my foot on the gas pedal, the tires screeching as I sped away from the nightmarish scene. As the miles flew by, I could still hear the haunting melody, the screams, and the cries echoing in my mind. The images of the woman and the monstrous creature were seared into my memory, a constant reminder of the horrors I had witnessed. I knew I could never escape the darkness that had consumed that desolate highway, a darkness that had now become a part of me. And so, I drive on, haunted by the terrors of that night. The road stretches endlessly before me, and I can't help but glance into the rearview mirror, half expecting to see the woman's ghostly figure in the back seat. The darkness follows me, a relentless specter that claws at the edges of my sanity. I am trapped in a never-ending nightmare, a passenger on a journey that has gone horribly wrong.